Good morning, everyone. Obviously, we are not there today, so we are going to be completing our notes on multiplying both decimals and fractions through this Edpuzzle. Let's go and get started. There are a couple of things that look important, so we're going to make them look important by just highlighting them so we know that this is important because these are the steps we're going to take to multiply decimals. There we go. And then our standard for today is 7NS2, applying and extending previous understandings of multiplication and division of fractions to multiply and divide rational numbers. Alright, step number 1. We're going to go ahead and stack the longest, not the biggest this time, the longest number on top, and then we would multiply as we usually would. We're going to then move the decimal, the total amount of decimal places in both numbers, and then as always we are going to use our dead man to determine the sign of the solution. Easiest way to learn math is by doing math, so let's go ahead and try this out with two examples. So our first one that we're looking at is at negative 0.18 times 12. So our first step is to determine which one is the longest number. Well, in this one here we have 3 digits, the 0, the 1, and the 8. And in this one here we have 2 digits. So obviously I'm going to put my 0.18 on top and then my 12 on bottom. Notice I don't have to have the decimals lined up. Also notice that I did not include the signs this time around. And then we just multiply as you usually would. So we go 2 times 8, which is 16. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3, and 2 times 0 is just 0. Then we go ahead and bring down a 0, and then multiply that 1 through. So we have 1 times 8, which is 8, 1 times 1, which is 1, and 1 times 0, which is 0. And of course, we are going to add these together. I'm already off the page. Hopefully you fit this a lot better, but I just want to make sure that you guys can see it. So now we go ahead and add 6 plus 0 is going to give us our 6. I'm going to go ahead and write that over here. 3 plus 8, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that gives us our 1, carry our 1 over. 1 plus 0 plus 1 is 2, and then we have 0 plus 0, which is 0. Alright, last up, we have to move the decimal, the total amount of decimal places in both numbers. So what we're literally going to do is count our decimal places. So for 18 we have 2 decimal places, and for 12 we don't have any, so the total is just 2. So we start from the end, move it once, move it twice, so our decimal point is going to go right there. So our number would be 2.16, but we cannot forget that last step, which is our dead man. So I'm going to go ahead and draw our dead man. There he is. What's up, dead man? Cross out a negative because of the negative 0.18 and a positive because of the positive 12. So I know that my solution is going to be a negative 2.16, and we are done. Just one last example for us to go over, because again, easiest way to learn math is by doing math. So I'm going to go ahead and look at that last one here in the corner, this 4.16 or 4.6 star negative 7.2. Since I do see a negative, I'm going to draw my dead man already so I don't forget about him. There he is. And then go through my steps. So first off, I know that this is a multiplication problem, so I'm going to use my steps to multiply decimals. And my first step is to stack the longest number on top. You're going to notice that the 4.6 has 2 digits, 7.2 also has 2 digits, so it really doesn't matter which one you put on top, which one you put on bottom. But just to keep it consistent, I'm going to put the 7.2 on top, just because it is the bigger absolute value, and I am multiplying that. So I'm going to go ahead and go through my multiplication. 6 times 2 will give me 12. 6 times 7 is 42. 42 plus 1 is 43. Bring down my 0. 4 times 2 is 8. And 4 times 7 is 28. And that 1 was from the last time, so right, 4 times, yeah. So 28. There it is. And I am adding those. Then we go through adding. 2 plus 0 will just give us our 2. 8 plus 3, 8, 9, 10, 11. So carry the 1, bring our 1 down. 8 plus 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Plus 1 is 13. There's our 3. Bring our 1. 2 plus 1 will give us our 3. So we have 3, 3, 1, 2. But step 3 does tell us that we need to move our decimal, the total amount of decimal places in both numbers. So our first number has 1 decimal place. Our second number has 1 decimal place. So in total, we have 2 decimal places. So I'm going to start at the end and move it once, move it twice. So there's my decimal point right there. So my number is actually 33.12, or 33 and 12 hundredths. Again, last step, we are going to use our dead man. Since the 4.6 is positive, I'm going to cross out a positive. Since 7.2 is negative, I cross out a negative. So I know my answer is going to be a negative 33.12. And we are done. The last two are for you to try. And then I do want you to answer the very last question on the bottom. Predict what the sign of the solution would be for the expression negative 10 times positive 6 times a negative 4, and explain your reasoning. So you should notice that there is something different from this problem than the problems that we've been working on. Next up, we are going to learn how to multiply fractions. And I know a lot of you guys do not like fractions, but it's actually not that bad. So again, this is important, so we're going to make it look important by highlighting. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and fill in these blanks. So we are actually going to first convert, and remember, convert means to change. We are going to be changing our mixed numbers to improper fractions, and then we would multiply straight across. As always, we use our dead man to determine the sign of the solution. If there's at least one negative, then you are going to be using your dead man. And then you are going to be simplifying or reducing. You're going to basically be making the number smaller by dividing the top and bottom number, also known as the numerator and the denominator, by the same number. And I know these steps, they seem a little weird, but when we actually do them, that's when it gets a little easier. It makes a lot more sense. So we are going to be doing 2 examples together, and they are the first 2. They are the hardest 2. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So we're just going to work on that very first one, negative 3/8 times 2, and you're going to notice that we have a fraction times a whole number, and we can't multiply a fraction times a whole number. It needs to be a fraction times a fraction. So we need to convert that whole number into a fraction. And you can do that with any whole number by simply putting it over the number 1. So we have negative 3/8 times 2 over 1. So again, you can you can convert any whole number into a fraction by putting it over 1. Step number 2, we're going to multiply straight across. So we're just going to go from left to right, and we are multiplying. Multiply. 3 times 2 is going to give us 6 over 8 times 1 does give us 8. Alright, step number 3, we're going to be using our dead man to figure out the sign. We are almost done. What? So easy. Negative 3/8 is obviously negative, so I'm going to cross out a negative, and 2 is a positive, so I'm going to cross out a positive, which leaves me with a negative answer. So I do know that I'm going to be left with a negative 6/8, but what makes fractions different is that we do have to simplify. You do have to divide both the top and bottom number by a single number that goes into both. So you want to make sure that you get a whole number. So we are actually going to divide both top and bottom by 2, because when I do divide it by 2, it gives us that nice whole number. 6 divided by 2 is going to give us 3, and 8 divided by 2 is going to give us 4, and I'm not forgetting my negative. And we are actually done because this is our simplest form. Our numbers will get no smaller than that. There's no number that goes into both 3 and 4 other than 1. last example that we're going to do together is the one right next to it, because we do have a mixed number, so I want to remind you, how do you convert a mixed number to an improper fraction? So here we have negative 1 and 3/6. You would do this nifty little thing here where you multiply your denominator times your whole number and then add your numerator. So if you multiply 6 times 1, that is 6. And if you add 3 to that, that gives you 9. So we have 9 over 6. And don't forget that is negative. And we're multiplying that by a negative 2/3. If you want, you can put that in parentheses. Is when usually we have negative numbers, we do put it in parentheses. Step number 2, multiply straight across. There we go. 9 times 2 gives us 18. And 6 times 3 also gives us 18. You should notice something right there already. But then we are going to be using our dead man, there he is, to figure out the sign of our answer, the sign of our solution. Since negative 1 and 3/6 is negative, we cross out a negative. Since 2/3 is negative, we cross out a negative. So we are left with a positive answer. So it is a positive 18 over 18. However, there is a number that goes into both 18 and 18. And since it is the same number, we would literally just divide it by 18. 18 divided by 18 is 1. 18 divided by 18 is 1. And 1 over 1 is just 1. So our answer for this problem is 1. Go ahead and try the other 2 examples, and don't forget to read your steps. We convert first, multiply next, use dead man, and then simplify your answers. And then on the very bottom, you are going to be explaining how to multiply a whole number times a fraction, and obviously, you're going to use the first example to help you out. All right, you did great. Have a good rest of your day.